Good morning. Today we've got two vehicles with squealing belts and bearings. I hope you come along. Now before we get started, I want to show you some tools that may be useful in your situation. The classic tool that everybody reaches for is a water spray bottle. And what you do is you spray down the belt and see if the quality of the noise changes. Now most every mechanic has memorized this little list at one time or another, but why does it sometimes work? Of course, the easy line is the first one. Spraying water won't help if the source of the sound is protected from the spray. But why would the noise increase if the tensioner is the problem and decrease if the sound is from misalignment? I think it's because of the direction of the slip. If the slip is in line with the belt, then spraying water lubricates the surface and increases slip. That would also explain why belt slip caused by a seized bearing might also increase when you spray with water. But if the slip is chirping from the belt moving sideways because of misalignment, then lubrication with water should reduce sound but not increase slipping. Does that make sense? Whatever you do, bear in mind that not all cars read the textbooks, so if you want to gain information, you have to move through the exam and make your diagnosis in a stepwise fashion. Now, if you think the sound is coming from a bearing, then you can use one of these three devices, and all three of them work the same way. You press the end up against the chassis adjacent to the bearing. You don't touch any moving parts, but you press it up against the chassis and listen on the other end. Of course, you can use both ears with a mechanic's stethoscope, but I find it a bit uncomfortable to use. The one I really like is one put together by Eric O of South Main Auto. It's cheap and easy, and it works at least as well, and is a lot more comfortable. First up is the Dodge Ram. This one squeals on rainy days and when it's been damp. I think it's going to end up being the belt tensioner, lack of tension, but in any case, I'm going to turn it over now. We'll see if we can reproduce the sound, and then we'll spray it and repeat that process. So here's dry. Now that one squeaked right at the end of the cranking. Now we'll spray it down. Of course you do this with the engine off. I'm spraying down the rib sides of the belt. Okay, let's turn it over again and see if there's a difference. Now in the past I've tried lubricating this tensioner and it's worked for a while and then it stops working, and I've been dealing with this problem for quite a while, and so it's not a new thing. We're going to take it off, see if there's anything else involved, and if I can't find anything else we're going to replace the tensioner. So you can see the coil here, there's the tensioner, the spring with the tensioner. We just crank it this way and take the belt off. You see how it's frozen? See how it didn't come back for me? So that's another sign the tensioner spring is bad. It should have popped back on me there. This is a 15 millimeter. The belt tensioner is held in behind there. I just have to get that off. Now here's the new belt tensioner, and you can see that the spring pulls the belt tensioner to its maximum open position here. And as you put more and more tension on it, it springs back there. So the mid-range is where you want it to be resting, but you need it to have full movement. So with changes in belt length and variance, you need to have some play. But looking over here, you can see it's locked in this position. In fact, it doesn't have the kind of play that you need for it to work properly, and so clearly this part is bad. Of course, a device like this needs something to hold it square and in the exact place, and it's that slot right there. There's a bump on the mating surface of the tensioner that holds it right in that spot so it can't move. Well, even though an old belt would be a very rare cause of belt noise, now is a convenient time to inspect and change it if necessary. This one looks almost brand new. You got to be careful though, because if the cause is bad alignment, your belt noise may go away temporarily with a new belt. You want to fix the underlying problem or your new belt's not going to last very long. The most important part of the belt inspection, in fact, is to inspect the underlying pulleys to look for evidence of overheating. If the belt overheated, it can leave this tarry residue in the grooves here, and those have to be cleaned out with a wire wheel before you put on the new belt. Here's a little hack that might be useful for you in the Dodge Ram. Of course, when you're working in a shop, you might be able to ask a buddy to do something that requires 3 hands, but when you're working on your own, it's a little hard to do that. I've got a breaker bar to the 15 millimeter socket and then a bungee back to the tie down of the battery. That's plenty safe and stable. I put a bolt through here so it wouldn't slide. And now I can put the belt on with two hands and not have to worry about it slipping off. Then once you're satisfied it's in the right place, just slide your breaker bar off, recheck, and then you're done. Next up is a 2000 Chev Suburban. The sound seemed to be coming from underneath, so I'll take off a plastic cover. Well, I've had an intermittent squealing sound coming from my engine, and I'm not sure about what the source is. Kind of a generalized sound. Under here. Okay, the compressor clutch pulley is moving. Okay, this sound is very distinctive for that of a water pump, at least very suspicious anyway. So I've brought the camera under here just to look at the weep hole for the water pump. If the weep hole were leaking, that would be justification for changing it. But you look at that weep hole right there, it looks okay. To get the AC clutch pulley off, you just loosen off the belt tensioner there. You just take it off, but you can't get it off all the way until you get the serpentine belt off, so I'll do that now. Need some more room to get the serpentine belt off. I'm going to take off the air intake, one screw here and one there. You only have to screw things up once before you start to do it every time. A wise mechanic either draws out the serpentine routing before he takes the serpentine belt off, or he looks for the sticker. In this case, the sticker is hard to read. This is a 15mm shallow socket, so just loosen that off there. Just slide the belt off. Okay, we know what it's not. It's not the alternator, and it's not the water pump. But see if you can hear this. Listen to this. That's a bit abnormal. And I've taken off the idler arm pulley so you can hear that one. Now, what you can see is the AC compressor and the compressor clutch, and you can see the belt tensioner. That's the belt tensioner there. Now listen to this. Holy crap, that's it. You imagine that spinning like crazy? That's our sound. Now, I'll spin the AC. Just get a hand on it. Hard to find it here. You got the better view than I do. Oh yeah, there we are. And no sound of the AC. So let's take the belt tensioner off. Here's a better view of it. There's the one bolt. And then there's the other one there. So I'm going to put the camera down and get those two off. Okay, these two mounting bolts are 15mm, and I really needed this wobble socket to get that second one off. But have you listen to this? So that's clearly the bearing. The tensioner part itself seems to be fine, so I'm going to see if I can replace this one bearing without having to replace the whole tensioner. It's off to the parts store. So I'm working this little nut off. Here it comes. There. Alright, so here's the old bearing that's there, and this is a new bearing I got for about $10. Now, it looks to me like I could press this out one of two ways, from the bottom or from the top. But if I have to push it down through that, that way, I don't have much of a lip to press on, and I don't want to press on the outer lip for fear of breaking it. So I'm going to push it down this way because I've got a nice solid surface underneath here. There. Now we need to press in the new bearing, clean it out a little bit, and here's the new bearing. And again, I think it's probably easiest to go down this way. We'll put this underneath here to hold it like that. And our end point is when it's flush on this edge. So I'll just put it in like so. Now, one of the options here is to put a little drop of Loctite on here to try and hold it or even stake it. But given the function of this bearing, this pulley, I don't think we need to do either of those. The chances are it'll work fine even without. And I'll just show you how this goes together. first disc goes into here like so, and this, and you notice that the lip of that goes right into the bearing, so it holds it steady and it spins like this. Now you might wonder, what's the point of this thing? And this thing is put on there so it's all together, because when you put it onto the belt, if it comes apart, it's hard to get back together, whereas if you have this little piece of metal holding it, it holds it tight so that you don't have to worry about it coming apart as you're trying to bolt it into place. Okay, so watch this. As I spin it, it's got a little bit of a wobble. Do you see that? Just a wee bit of a wobble. Right there. So I make a mark with the... Right there is the high point. There's the low point. So I'm just going to take a hammer and just tap the bearing a little bit to try and get that better. Next, the small bearing. And that again looks good, nice and flush all the way around. And then this one goes on here like so. And then this covers the bearing up a little bit. And this like this. Oh yeah. Yeehaw! What a difference.